naturally everyone was very, very anxious, and women would meet and ask if you heard anything about where they are. No, nobody knew. The authorities wouldn't even entertain any questions from us.
We were taken to an internment camp near Edinburgh called Milton Bridge. So we were there till about maybe 3 weeks, and then we were transported down to Bury, and from Bury transported to Liverpool, where we got the Arandora Star.
During the war, cruise ships like the Arandora Star, more used to entertaining the rich and famous, were requisitioned to help in the war effort and used to transport internees and POWs to Canada.
There at the quayside were 2 ships, remember it vividly. First one, Arandora Star, the name on it, and there was a gun, big heavy gun at the back, and we moved forward slowly up a gangplank, a few at a time, and it took about 5 or 6 hours to load. And the queue stopped about 200 prisoners in front of me, and that was the Arandora Star full. They pulled up the gangplank and the Arandora Star drew away, and another ship drew up in its place, and that ship was called the Ettrick. We moved into the Ettrick, and there were 404 of us in a hold, and believe you me, that wasn't funny. And we were completely encased in barbed wire. If a torpedo had hit that ship, it was a floating coffin, you know.
While the Ettrick would safely reach Canada 2 weeks later, the Arandora Star would not. On the 2nd of July 1940, the ship, carrying about 1,500 Italian internees and German POWs, was torpedoed off the coast of Ireland by a Nazi U-boat.
It was the second day. I was sleeping in the deck, and of course I heard this big thud, and at first I didn't know what it was, but then I was bewildered. But 1 or 2 of my friends grabbed me by the arm and took me into a boat, a lifeboat, which more or less on the verge of going down. And well, it landed on the water quite nicely, and then we started rowing away from it. I think it must have been about 30 people on the boat. And then of course I just turned around and I saw the ship going down. I thought it was a terrible sight just to see that. Aye.
Nearly 500 Italians lost their lives when the ship sank, together with 300 Germans and crew.
British survivors from the Arandora Star were cheerful enough in spite of their ordeal. When a Nazi U-boat torpedoed the liner, the death roll was greatly increased by the panic which spread among 1,500 internees being taken to Canada. Germans and Italians are said to have fought for places in the boats. Altogether, about 1,000 people were landed, including most of the British crew and troops who were acting as guards. And there's the message dropped by a plane soon after the torpedoing.
It has emerged with the passage of time that the stories of fighting on board the ship as it sank had little substance and amounted to nothing more than wartime propaganda. But that is little comfort to those who lost fathers, sons and husbands.
We heard about the boat being sunk, and my mother said to get in touch with her lawyer in Edinburgh here, see what you can find about where your dad is. So it was a lawyer that found out. And in the letter it said, wasn't said he was drowned, presumed drowned, on the Arandora Star, blah, blah, blah.
Months later, my mother got to know what happened to me, and she was quite happy when I heard, of course, I was saved. But I had a cousin, he was with me. He was born in Italy, and he went down with the ship.
None of them deserved to be taken out of their houses in the middle of the night by the police. In many cases, in many hundreds of cases, that was the last time that the mother or the wife would have seen their beloved.
Italy did a really rotten thing. To come in on the side of Hitler in 1940, when Britain had her back to the wall, what the hell did we expect?
But it's no use complaining. When Italy went into war, a lot of people would get hurt. That was quite normal. But some people didn't want to look at it that way. They used to say, oh, you shouldn't have interned me because I'm maybe a fishing shipman or something, I don't know. But they interned everybody, they're quite right. Because again, as I say, I could have been a spy.
I think if the Italians were truthful within themselves and realised what's went on, they'd be bitter like what I am. Even to this day, we have never had an apology or say that we're sorry, that it was partially our fault or partially somebody else's fault. No. Still, as far as they're concerned, presumed dead. Now, what kind of an answer's that? Eh?
You can imagine our feelings. My God, the Arandora Star, that was a ship that sailed before us. And we realised then how lucky we had been to survive and to be where we were.
Italy would remain an enemy of Britain until its surrender in September 1943, and many of the interned Italians would spend up to 4 years in camps in Canada, Australia, or the Isle of Man.
Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May.
May the 8th, 1945. Britain rejoices. Germany, the chief enemy who sought to crush her, has been totally defeated. The British people demonstrate their thankfulness that the greater part of their grim work is done.
The homecoming of a British soldier. This is the kind of news for which every woman waits.
It's a long...
I arrived in Glasgow almost end of May, I think. And I was walking up the stairs and Jean was coming from her house.
And he came bounding upstairs. He hadn't warned us that he was coming, he just arrived.
And that's how we met on the stairs after 41 to 45. So that was quite a long time.
If today...
Despite the trials that wartime had brought, some 4,000 romances between Poles and Scots would lead to wedding bells.
There was a lot of Polish-Scottish marriages were formed during that time, because we were here for, after all, about 4 years.
He asked my father if we could marry, and my father said, because I was 19. I said, no, not till she's 20. So I was 21, we can marry the next.
My friends, you never attend a wedding in Scotland, but you hear somebody say that you're losing a daughter and gaining a son. When the Polish soldiers came to Scotland, we looked upon them as a people who had lost a country, and we gladly lent them ours. Now they've got 2 countries, their own, which with the help of our boys beside them, they will get back one day, and ours, which they have adopted in their hearts as we have adopted them. So now I ask you to drink a toast, not only to a daughter of Poland, but to a new son of Scotland.
The 8th of June 1946 may have been a day of celebration across the country, but it was a day of great disappointment for Polish servicemen who had fought to liberate their country and stood shoulder to shoulder with the British.
And here is the dog who lapped up the cheers in the Charing Cross Road.
All the nations were invited to the victory parade in England. And Poles were the first and the only true allies of Britain weren't invited.
Princes Street, Edinburgh, was the scene of one of the most striking episodes of the royal visit. The city's victory parade and the march past, at which the King took the salute.
It was a disappointing thing, but the situation at that time was such that British government had to more or less be friendly to the Soviets.
Britain and America were appeasing Uncle Joe Stalin. It was appeasement at any price. We had to pay that price.
The Russian war